By midnight, Awele woke up to realize that she could not move any part of her body. It was as if something was holding her down, making it difficult for her to move. For hours, she remained stuck on the bed and struggled to regain control of her body. Once morning came, Awele felt as though a weight was lifted from her body as she stood up from her bed terrified. Once upon a time, a girl named Awele went to the village market to buy some clothes. It was almost Christmas, and her father gave her some money to buy some new clothes for Christmas. Filled with excitement, Awele rushed off to the village market. She decided to buy some used clothes, which seemed to be way cheaper than the new ones sold in the clothing stores. She arrived one of the popular thrift sellers in the market and began to sift through the heap of clothes that she had on sale. After a few minutes, Awele caught sight of an extremely beautiful dress, which seemed to grab her attention. She immediately set the dress aside and continued to search for other dresses that she liked. Not long afterwards, another young woman grabbed the dress that Awele had set aside and tried to pay for it. Awele, realizing what had just happened, confronted the young woman and said that the dress was hers, but the young woman seemed so determined to pay for the dress, and this resulted in an argument which attracted the attention of the thrift seller, who intervened and handed the dress over to the other woman, who offered to pay more money for it. Awele, filled with so much fury, left the thrift store and marched home in anger without buying any clothes. She was extremely angry as she could not believe the injustice that was meted out on her. She told her father all that happened, and her father advised her that in life, some things are not worth killing oneself over, and that Awele should visit another shop instead. And Awele, despite being pissed, decided to do as her father had advised. A few days later, Awele decided to visit the village market again. This time, she went to another thrift vendor, and to her amazement, she saw a dress which looked exactly like the dress that was unjustly taken away from her. Awele, without wasting any time, paid for the dress and returned home extremely excited. She tried on the dress and could not believe how beautiful it looked on her. The beautiful dress reminded her of her late mother, who had something similar when she was alive. The thought of this moved Awele to tears as she hung the dress in the corner of her room. This was a few days to Christmas, and Awele's father informed her that her twin cousins would be coming over to theirs to spend the Christmas with them. Awele was so excited to hear this, as she had not seen her twin cousins in a very long time. The day of their arrival came, and Awele was so delighted to reconnect with them after so many years. They spent their time laughing and talking, and before they knew what was happening, it was already night. Awele bid them good night as she returned to her room to sleep. It was the eve of Christmas, and Awele was extremely happy at the thought of wearing her special dress the next morning. By midnight, Awele woke up to realize that she could not move any part of her body. It was as if something was holding her down, making it difficult for her to move. For hours, she remained stuck on the bed and struggled to regain control of her body. Once morning came, Awele felt as though a weight was lifted from her body as she stood up from her bed terrified. She rushed to go talk to her father, but realized that he was no longer in his room. Confused as to where her father could have gone so early, Awele decided to check on her twin cousins and realized that they too were nowhere to be found. This was so concerning, as Awele wondered where they could have gone. She waited for them for hours, but her father and cousins did not return. It was Christmas Day, and Awele could hear the jubilation of her neighbors. She walked around, asking everyone she came across if they had seen her father, and one of her neighbors revealed that she saw Awele walking out of her hut with her fathers and cousin trailing her behind. Awele looked at her confused as she could not remember anything of such happening. She returned to her room and tried to wrap her head around what her neighbor had just said. As she was thinking, Awele realized something strange about her dress. It had some strange muddy stains on it, stains that weren't there the day that she hung it up in her room. Confused as to how the stains got there, Awele's mind was taken aback to her strange experience during the night when she felt a strange presence in her room and was unable to move. Desperate for answers, Awele rushed out of her hut in search of her father and cousins. She searched the entire village for them and came across a strange old woman who told her that the answers she sought were right in her home. The woman said to her that the dress she bought from the thrift store was behind all that was happening. Awele asked how this was possible, and the woman informed her that the dress was possessed by a restless spirit and that the dress had the ability to possess its owner. This explained why her neighbor saw her walking out of her hut with her father and cousins that night. Awele, now filled with shock, asked the woman if she knew where her father and cousins were, and the woman told her to return home and wear the dress, as only then would she be able to find the answers that she so desperately yearned. Awele thanked the strange woman and returned home. She stared at the dress for a while and could not believe that the dress was possessed by a restless spirit. Awele feared what would happen to her if she eventually wore the dress, but the thought of her father and cousins in danger filled her with so much courage as she decided to put on the dress. Immediately, Awele noticed the strange spirit taking over her body. She found herself walking to an unknown destination. Awele was so conscious of all that was happening around her, despite the fact that she no longer had control of her body. She found herself walking for hours to an unknown place deep in the forest. Not long afterwards, she arrived at a very big hut in the middle of the forest. They walked into the hut, and Awele was so eager to find her father and cousins in the hut, but the hut seemed to be empty and surprisingly quiet. It had an eerie feel to it, and this terrified Awele, who wondered why the spirit was there. She began to panic and did everything possible to connect with the spirit but couldn't, and this frustrated her greatly to know that she had no control of her body. She felt like a puppet being controlled by an external force and hoped that she made the right decision to wear the dress. However, Awele noticed something strange about the spirit in her. It seemed to be searching for something in the hut as it moved her from one room to the other, ransacking the entire hut. Awele tried to speak to the spirit again, but to no avail. Before she knew what was happening, the spirit took her out of the hut and began to walk so briskly. Awele felt helpless as she had no control of all that was happening. It was now getting dark, and Awele could not believe that her Christmas turned out to be such a terrible day. The thought of something terrible happening to her father and cousins terrified her greatly as she continued to plead with the spirit to take her to them, but the spirit ignored her as they arrived a second hut. This time, the spirit stood in a distance and stared at the hut. Awele wondered why they were there, as all the spirit did was stare at the strange hut without making any attempt to move. Suddenly, Awele noticed tears pouring down her eyes. It was the spirit, crying, and Awele knew that she had to connect with the spirit to understand all that was happening. She tried to speak to the spirit again, but got no response from it. So, Awele then decided to sing a song that her late mother sang to her whenever she was sad. Immediately, the tears pouring down her eyes ceased, and Awele heard a still voice that asked her where she learnt the song. Shocked to hear the spirit speaking to her, Awele told the spirit that her late mother sang the song to her whenever she was sad. The spirit then revealed to her that the song reminded her of her late mother too. Awele was so grateful that the spirit was now communicating with her. So she asked the spirit why she was crying, and the spirit told her that the house in the distance was her home. She revealed that a few years ago, she met a woman who seemed so nice to her. At the time, she was having several issues with her husband and needed someone to talk to. So, when she met the strange woman, she narrated the issue she was having with her, and the woman listened and advised her on what to do. That was how she became friends with the strange woman, who became her very good friend and visited her home at intervals. One day, however, the woman invited her to her own home and she gladly went. Little did she know that the woman she called her friend had planned evil for her. When she arrived at the woman's house, the woman handed her a beautiful dress that she made for her and asked her to try it on. Immediately she wore the dress, she slumped to the floor and realized that her spirit was now trapped in the dress. All the while, she never knew that the woman was a witch who envied her life and wanted to be like her. The witch then took over her body and went to her home to pretend to be her. She took over her family and lived her life, and for years she remained trapped in the dress, which was hanging in the witch's home in the forest, until some thieves raided the home and stole the dress. They took the dress to the village market and sold it to a thrift seller, not knowing that it was no ordinary dress. Awele, on hearing this, asked the spirits why they were standing in a distance instead of confronting the witch, and the spirits revealed to her that she tried to do so once but was unable to approach the house as the witch put a spell around the house which made it impossible for her to go closer. She then told Awele that on the night when Awele was unable to move from her bed, she took over her body and tried to gain access to her home and family but couldn't because of the witch. Little did she know that Awele's father and cousins saw her leaving the house that night and trailed her, thinking that it was Awele. Unfortunately, the witch was doing some incantations outside the house when they arrived, so she cast a spell on them and turned them into trees. Awele's father and cousins were now trees, standing at the corner of her home. The spirits told Awele that if they found a way to banish the witch, her spirit could return back to her body and her family would be free. Awele, unsure of what to do, decided that they should return home to strategize on how to banish the witch. When they arrived home, Awele took off the dress and began to think. Later that night, she heard a sound outside her hut. It was the sound of a drum playing at repeated intervals. Awele walked out of her hut and saw the old woman who stopped her on the street that afternoon. The old woman told Awele that she knew how to take down the wicked witch, and Awele looked at her excitedly as she listened to what she had to say. The old woman gave her a drum and told her to beat the drum outside the witch's home. She said that Awele should ensure that she wore the dress to enable her free the spirits that resided within. Awele was so excited as she thanked the old woman and collected the drum. As the old woman turned to leave, Awele stopped her to ask why she was helping her, and the old woman revealed to her that she was the late mother of the young woman trapped in the dress. She pleaded with Awele to help her daughter as she disappeared into the night, and Awele rushed into her room to quickly wear the dress. It was almost midnight, but Awele did not care as she took the drum and walked to the witch's home. When she arrived, she began to beat the drum, and the sound of the drum echoed through the night as the witch emerged from her hut with her eyes blazing with fury. "Who dares to disturb my peace?" the witch screamed as Awele continued to beat the drum, her heart pounding in sync with the beats. Awele then noticed that the witch was now becoming weak. With each beat of the drum, the witch grew weaker as she began to plead with Awele to stop. She tried to cast a spell on Awele, to silence her, but nothing she did worked as she fell to the ground unable to stand. As the drum beat grew louder, the ground around the witch's home began to shake as the spell cast around the house shattered and a bright light enveloped the witch, who disappeared into the drum, giving way for the spirit in the dress to return to her rightful body. Awele's father and cousins transformed back to their human forms as they embraced Awele and thanked her for saving them. The spirit in the dress, now back to her human form, thanks Awele for saving her life, as Awele went on to narrate how her late mother helped in saving her from the witch. This brought tears to her eyes as she thanked Awele for being there for her when no one else was. She then returned to her hut to meet her family, who she had not seen in so many years. Awele returned home and was so excited to have her family back, as although their Christmas did not go as planned, Awele was glad to have helped a helpless woman reunite with her family. She later burned the dress and the drum to end the curse and suffering it had caused. The spirit, now back in her rightful body, visited Awele's family to express her heartfelt gratitude. She brought gifts for Awele to thank her again for reuniting her with her family, and that was how Awele became friends with the woman that she saved. The lesson to be learned from this story is that everything in life happens for a reason. Also, we should be careful of the people we tell our problems, as oftentimes it is only those that are close to us that will be able to harm us. Choose your friends wisely and be careful of those you open up to, especially strangers. I hope you enjoyed the story. Like, subscribe and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.